The transport ship descended onto the training moon with a shudder that rattled every loose panel in its hull. Through the narrow viewport, Mira Torres watched the surface grow closer, a vast expanse of gray dust and jagged stone lit by the faint glow of a distant sun. It was a place stripped of beauty, chosen deliberately for its austerity. No distractions, no comfort, only the discipline of survival and the grinding weight of expectation. She carried herself upright, even in the cramped interior, boots planted firmly, hands steady on her knees. Around her, recruits of every imaginable species shifted restlessly, their various carapaces scales, and fur bristling with nervous energy. Mira could feel their glances slide toward her, a lone human among them, small, fleshy, and unimpressive by most galactic standards. She kept her gaze forward, unwilling to offer them the satisfaction of seeing her unease. The ramp lowered with a metallic groan, and the recruits filed out into the dust-laden wind. The training grounds stretched across a plateau marked by squat buildings of alloy and reinforced stone. Flags of the Galactic Coalition fluttered weakly in the atmosphere's thin currents. Soldiers barked orders, herding the new arrivals into ranks. Mira obeyed without hesitation, slotting herself into place among towering reptilian warriors and slender, six-eyed strategists whose gaze seemed to dissect her at once. A heavy silence fell when he arrived. General Varkos emerged from the command bunker with the unhurried gait of someone who never doubted his dominance. His skin gleamed like obsidian, his frame towering over the tallest recruit. Eyes a shade of burning gold swept across the line with predatory precision. When he spoke, his voice carried through the thin air, without amplification, deep, resonant, and contemptuous. Another crop of would-be soldiers, he rumbled, his tusked mouth curling into something that was not quite a smile. Some of you may survive long enough to matter. Most will not. No one shifted. No one breathed louder than necessary. Varkos let the silence stretch before continuing, prowling down the line. He addressed each cluster of species with derision thinly veiled as observation. To the insectoid Arthari, he sneered about their hive instincts. To the scaled track, he mocked their reliance on brute force. And when his gaze settled on Mira, he paused for longer than was comfortable. And here, he said slowly, the Coalition has given us one of the humans. The word dripped with disdain. A ripple of quiet amusement moved through the other recruits, some covering their expressions, others letting their mandibles click or their tails flick with undisguised mockery. Mira felt the weight of their stares pressing down on her shoulders, but she did not lower her head. Varkos stepped closer, towering above her. Fragile, soft, a species barely weaned from its cradle, pretending it belongs among warriors who have fought for centuries. He tilted his head, studying her as though she were an insect pinned under glass. Do you believe your kind has anything to offer this galaxy, human? Mira kept her voice even. I believe we wouldn't be here if the Coalition thought otherwise, General. A few of the recruits shifted uneasily at her reply. Varkos's golden eyes narrowed, and the curve of his tusked mouth hardened into something sharper. He crouched slightly, bringing his face closer until she could see the faint scars etched across his jawline. Do you think, he asked softly, that the galaxy respects you because of your presence here? No. You are tolerated. A gesture of pity. Nothing more. He let the words sink in, savoring the silence. Then louder, for all to hear, humanity is a joke. Your bodies are weak, your lifespans laughable, your technology scavenged from greater races. You are not soldiers. You are children. The laughter this time was not contained. Harsh clicks, guttural hisses, shrill trills of amusement rose from the ranks. Mira stood perfectly still, her jaw tight, her breath steady. Varkos leaned in, close enough that his voice was almost a growl. You are nothing, little human, and if you believe otherwise, you are a fool. The sentence never finished. Myra's fist moved faster than most eyes could track, a precise strike that snapped upward with the brutal efficiency of long-practiced muscle memory. Knuckles met bone with a sickening crack, and the massive general's head snapped sideways. His body followed, crashing to the dust with the force of a felled tree. The laughter died in an instant. A stunned silence enveloped the training grounds. Recruits stared in disbelief, eyes wide, mandibles frozen mid-click. A human, small, fragile, soft, stood with her fists still raised, her stance balanced, her breathing calm. At her feet lay the general of the Coalition training program, his jaw grotesquely misaligned, blood pooling dark against the gray dust. No one moved until the medics arrived, their equipment clattering as they knelt beside Varkos. He groaned faintly half-conscious before they sedated him and loaded him onto a stretcher. Only then did the whispering begin. She broke him. With a single strike. Impossible. The recruits' voices carried disbelief, fear, and, most unsettling of all, respect. Mira lowered her hand, flexing her fingers once before clasping them behind her back. Her expression remained calm, though her pulse thundered in her ears. She did not look around for approval, nor did she shrink under the weight of their stares. She simply waited, silent, as if nothing had happened. Command officers arrived quickly, their expressions unreadable. One barked for the recruits to disperse, herding them back toward the barracks. Mira was ordered to remain behind. Inside the command bunker, the air was cooler, but no less heavy. She stood before a panel of officers whose varied features betrayed little. They questioned her sharply. Did she understand the gravity of her actions? Did she realize she had assaulted a commanding officer? Was she prepared for the consequences? Mira answered simply. He threatened my people. He insulted the Coalition's decision to include us. I responded. The silence that followed stretched long enough for her to wonder if they would throw her into a cell. But then one officer, older and scarred, leaned forward. His expression was not anger, but something closer to curiosity. You broke his jaw before he finished the insult, he said. Was that calculation or instinct? Discipline, Mira replied. The officer regarded her for a long moment, then leaned back. The panel dismissed her without further comment. When she stepped outside again, the recruits parted for her without a word. Some avoided her gaze. Others met it only briefly, then looked away. The shift in atmosphere was unmistakable. She was no longer dismissed as soft or fragile. She was something else now, something untested, perhaps dangerous and worthy of caution. That night in the barracks, the whispers did not stop. Mira lay on her bunk, staring at the ceiling, listening as voices carried from one end of the room to the other. A human struck down Varkos. He'll kill her when he recovers, or maybe he'll think twice. She closed her eyes, shutting out the speculation. Her knuckles throbbed faintly, a dull ache that reminded her of the strike. She had not come here to provoke, nor to prove herself through violence. But she knew something had shifted, not just in the camp, but in the way every recruit now looked at her. The days after the incident unfolded with a strained, electric silence. The training grounds that had once echoed with dismissive laughter now pulsed with caution. Recruits gave Mira space, though not out of courtesy. Their glances, fleeting and calculating, carried a mixture of apprehension and something close to reverence. She did not revel in it. She kept her posture steady, her routine exact, her tone measured. Yet she could not ignore that every movement she made was being weighed by eyes no longer indifferent. The Coalition instructors did not acknowledge the event directly, but the change in their approach was subtle and undeniable. Where once they had dismissed her with easy skepticism, now they pressed harder, testing her limits in combat drills and tactical exercises. Mira met each demand without complaint, pushing her body beyond exhaustion, determined not to let one decisive strike define her. She did not want to be remembered as a fluke of rage, but as a soldier capable of more than one moment of defiance. In the medical wing, General Varkos healed with a speed that belied his age and mass. His jaw was reforged by alien surgeons, reinforced with regenerative alloys. Yet, what could not be healed, so easily was his pride. He spoke little to the staff who attended him, But his silence was not one of peace. It was the silence of a storm held barely at bay. His golden eyes burned whenever the human recruit's name was mentioned in hushed tones within earshot. For Varkos, humiliation was worse than injury, and vengeance simmered within him like an unquenched fire. Word of the human's defiance spread beyond the training moon. Other stations heard the rumor, passing it along in mess halls and briefing chambers. A human recruit felled a general became a phrase repeated with awe and doubt. Some dismissed it as exaggeration. Others seized on it as a symbol that perhaps humanity was not the frail, dependent species so many had believed. Mira remained unaware of the scale of the tale, though she could feel its weight pressing upon her. Her first true test came during squad exercises. She was placed within a mixed unit, paired with towering Ardhari whose chitinous limbs struck like blades, and with track warriors who bellowed with feral joy in combat. The exercise demanded strategy, coordination, and endurance under simulated battlefield conditions. Mira knew they doubted her. Their sideways glances spoke of reluctance, of a quiet hope that she would falter and prove the general's words true. But when the simulation began, she acted with calm precision. She analyzed terrain in seconds, adapted to unexpected variables, issued short, decisive instructions. The others hesitated at first, unwilling to follow the human's lead. Yet, when her plans repeatedly placed them at advantage, when her adjustments prevented ambush or collapse, their resistance weakened. By the end, they followed without hesitation, carried not by belief in humanity, but by recognition of effective command. Afterward, one Ardhari approached her quietly, his mandibles clicking in thought. "Your body is small," he admitted, "but your mind adapts quickly. Perhaps this is your weapon." Mira only nodded. She did not need to argue. Results spoke louder than words. When Varkos returned, his presence drew every gaze like a gravitational pull. His jaw, reforged and scarred, gave his already imposing visage a more fearsome edge. He strode into the training ground with deliberate weight, and silence fell instantly. Recruits braced for his wrath. Mira stood, as steady as ever, though her pulse beat faster in her throat. The general's eyes locked on her, and for a moment all others ceased to exist. The hatred there was raw, untempered, but controlled. Varkos was not a fool. He would not waste his vengeance in a rash outburst. Instead, his voice rumbled across the assembled ranks. Strength is tested not by defiance, but by endurance. A single blow proves nothing. Survival proves all. It was no direct challenge, yet the implication was clear. He would not forget. He would not forgive. In the following weeks, training grew harsher. Recruits endured punishing drills, forced marches, and simulated battles that left even the strongest gasping. Mira pushed herself without complaint, every muscle screaming yet her will unbroken. She knew Varkos was watching. Every stumble, every hesitation, would be seized upon as proof that her earlier strike had been nothing more than luck. She refused to give him that satisfaction. The moment of collision came sooner than expected. A large-scale simulation pitted squads against one another in shifting terrain, monitored by officers from above. By design or manipulation, Myra's squad was paired with the one led directly by Varkos himself. He did not mask his intent. His strategy was ruthless, his maneuvers precise, and his focus singular. His every move pressed toward her, as if the entire exercise existed solely to bring them into direct confrontation. Her squad fought valiantly, but struggled against his overwhelming strength. Myra's orders kept them alive, but casualties mounted within the simulation. She recognized the trap. Varkos sought to expose her weakness not by striking her directly, but by forcing her to watch her squad collapse under his command. Yet she adapted. Where Varkos relied on dominance, she employed unpredictability. She used terrain, feints, and improvisation. She forced him to expend resources chasing shadows, drew him into bottlenecks where his size was a liability, and struck where his confidence was greatest. It was not enough to defeat him. but it was enough to deny him the easy victory he sought. At the climax, the simulation threw in an external hazard, an artificial ambush by automated drones designed to overwhelm both squads. Chaos erupted. For a moment, the contest between Mira and Varkos was overshadowed by the need for survival. Recruits screamed orders, blasts tore through the air, and the neat lines of strategy dissolved into a desperate fight. Amid the storm, Mira saw what Varkos did not, a drone breaking through the perimeter, its sights locked on the general's unguarded flank. She moved without hesitation, sprinting through fire, hurling herself into the line of attack. Her strike knocked the drone's trajectory just enough that its blast scorched stone rather than flesh. She drove her blade into its core, sparks exploding around her. When the smoke cleared, Varkos was staring at her. His jaw clenched, not in anger but in something far more conflicted. She had saved him. The human he despised, the recruit he sought to break, had intervened where others had faltered. The simulation ended, alarms signaling the close. Recruits slumped in exhaustion, panting and bruised. Mira stood catching her breath, her weapon still slick with the drone's residue. Varkos approached slowly. Every recruit froze, awaiting the inevitable eruption. He stopped before her, towering as ever, his scarred jaw tense. His eyes, golden and burning, held hers for a long, silent moment. Then he inclined his head, barely perceptible, but unmistakable. It was not gratitude, nor was it surrender. It was acknowledgement. The whispers began that night, that the general had bowed, even faintly, to a human, that perhaps humanity was not to be dismissed,